there are a number of photos that you've shown of touching spiders, holding snakes. And we do know that there's a really large problem with illegal and exotic wildlife trade. And also there were suggestions of seeing spiders in your garden and catching them and bringing them inside the house kind of thing. And I'm just wondering what you all think about the impact of your work and what it may potentially have on pet trade or wildlife trade.
If I may answer that, I think the pet trade and the wildlife trade, it's kind of one of those silent problems. I think people tend to go into like an exotic pet shop and see all of these amazing reptiles and amphibians and invertebrates for sale, and it doesn't occur to them where they may have come from. And I don't think it's publicized enough that, you know, a lot of these animals are wild caught, which means they've been plucked from their natural environment and transported to wherever they've ended up and put in an enclosure and are to be sent home with somebody, quite possibly with the wrong information as well. I mean, I think it's not so much a problem with the reptiles and amphibians because most of the people who sell them in these shops tend to know a lot about their care. But I find that with the invertebrates, a lot of them that show up, people don't know a lot about their care or where they've come from, and they're just sent home with very general information, which a lot of the time is wrong. And I find that a lot of my time, especially on Instagram, is spent helping people understand what animals they've ended up keeping and how, you know, where they've come from and what they need. And it's always very shocking to me just how little they know about what they've bought. It's been bought on a whim. And, you know, so I'm hoping that through talking about it via social media and having these discussions, it'll open people's eyes a little bit more to the wildlife trade and how problematic it can be, and what to look for if they're interested in keeping exotic animals themselves, how to perhaps source captive bred specimens, how to source them from people who know what they're doing and have bred them responsibly and can give the correct information about their care as well and give them realistic expectations of what they're getting into. As regards what we're talking about with native species, going out and finding spiders outdoors and bringing them in to look at them, I encourage people to go out and take a look at what's out there and take a more hands-off approach. If they want to go out and watch spiders, find them in their garden, observe them in their webs, observe them where they are and what they're doing, it's far more interesting to see them interacting with their natural environment than to watch them trying to escape the pot that you've just put them in. However, if you do want to bring them indoors, I support doing so if you want to watch them for a little while, but I also very much encourage releasing them after a day or two once you've taken some photos and had a little bit of time to watch them and have a little look at them up close. I think personally, I'm moving away from keeping a lot of spiders. I have an entire spider room down the hall from where I am right now with, there were thousands of spiders in there for a while. But I'm moving away from keeping as many of them now just because I think it's better to observe them in the wild. It's better to watch them where they are. And I'd rather put the time and energy into making opportunities for myself to go abroad to more exotic climes to see exotic species in nature as well and observe them where they should be.
Fantastic. I think that's a really great answer. So then we have so many questions. I'm going to move on to another one that's for Sterren, which is about your really wonderful work with children. If you've ever had any problems with the parents who are with the children and how you've overcome maybe the fear of the parents in the context of a children's outreach event.
Yeah, that's a great question. There is a reason why I first published 2 children's books and now I am publishing a book for grown-ups, because many of the parents of the children that read my books have become interested through the children. So it might be a horrible thing to say, but I kind of use the children to get to the parents. You know, because I also put a call to action in my theater show, in my TV show, everywhere, these children are usually so small that their parents will need to go with them into nature. So what I really see also after my theater shows is that the parents, they come in scared, they hold the hand of the child because they are scared, not because the child is scared. And in the end, they are the ones that enjoyed the theater show maybe even more than the child did, because they probably already knew more than the parent. So I think getting to that demographic through children is actually pretty easy, because children will listen to parents will listen to their children and not so much to me. So that's how I do that.
That's fantastic. We're coming to the end of our session. We have about 4 minutes left. So I think I have one last question that I would like everybody to address. And yeah, I probably starting we have Ben as well, who hasn't been able to speak yet, but so I guess here's the question. Obviously, there can be barriers to scientific communication in your particular topic. And I'm just wondering if you can give an example of a barrier you had in your area and how you overcame it, to try to give people who are listening today some advice on how you got through some kind of a difficult time in communicating part of your message. And Roberta, if one of your group wants to start, and then we just go in order of the speakers. Bit scary question, but.
Well, I think I would have to think about that a little longer. It doesn't, nothing comes to my mind, but maybe Dorothy or Ben has an idea, and then I pass the ball to them.
You never had a barrier. It's wonderful as well. You guys can always think.
Yeah, I think one of the most obvious barrier is in terms of the community engagement is language barrier, because again, like I said, while Swahili is a national language, there's still those the older communities that still don't even know Swahili, and pass information along to them or to have a discussion, especially when we are having our focus group discussions. And then, of course, another barrier is when we are doing the engagement with policymakers and they do not see snake bites as a big problem. I mean, a classical example is a county called Nyandarua. We went to the county and we told them that we had been to their facilities and collected data. And in 2019, they had 54 snakebite cases, but they were very adamant that they do not have a problem of snake bites in that county. So it's very hard when you try to convince those kinds of people with data, and they're very set and convinced that that problem does not exist. So that is a barrier that I guess we have to navigate with continuous engagement and sharing of that data, and of course directing them to their own health facilities where they can also find that data.
Fantastic answer. We have time for one more answer now. Caitlin, would you like to address that one?
Yeah, I suppose that's a hard one, isn't it? More and more what I'm seeing is, I mean, I had the opportunity a lot of the time to engage with people who are already positioned to at least partially receive a bit of my message. So people who have come to an exhibition, or people who have decided to look at my photography or watch a video or something like that. But I also have spent a good deal of time in schools where the teacher may have invited me to come speak, but the students haven't decided to be there in that particular talk. And I'm noticing more and more that kids are growing up being taught that like bugs are like sort of dirty and beneath them, and absolutely do not want to in any way be involved in the discussion, hear what I have to say, touch a bug, just totally switched off to it. And my real belief is that you can't pick and choose which part of nature you value. Like, obviously it comes as a package deal, everything works together, and we need to be able to appreciate it in its entirety, and that includes like bringing like an appreciation to these things that are uglier and not as fluffy, maybe things that are seen as dangerous. So getting the message across to those kids who are going to grow up hating nature is so important. And I find that it does take a lot more attention away from, I suppose, kids who are already excited about it, but just spending a little bit more time with them and challenging where those beliefs have come from, and just getting them to, again, like using positive emotions and encouragement to get them to look at these things in a little bit of a different way than they have been told before. It's a start. As soon as they go home, of course, it's going to revert back to that messaging they're getting from their parents. So I think that's a problem to be aware of that's coming up. And well, it's existed already for a long time, but certain areas it is certainly coming up more and more. So it's just I suppose remembering that you need to talk to people who aren't seeking you out, who aren't already positioned to listen. And those people can be really hard to find. So yeah, that is a challenge.
Well, that's a wonderful way to end our session. And I think actually something you said about nature comes as a package, and we really need to appreciate everything from the organism itself to all the health benefits it can bring to us as well. I mean, for me, I'm a conservation biologist, so I'm very strongly in support of that message of nature as a package. We have to end the session now. I really hope everyone was as inspired as I was. It was a wonderful session. Thank you all so much for committing your time.